Hey guys, welcome back to the Work Wherever podcast. My name is Sydney and we've got Roy here.
Hey.
And today we're going to be talking about some video calling etiquette.
Etiquette.
There, that's a good word.
That's a great word.
Stay tuned.
Take you gotta let it down, 'cause you can work wherever now.
All right.
Hey.
Hi guys, welcome back.
Hey everybody. So we're actually on like 2.0 of this episode.
Yeah.
So we recorded this episode, did a fantastic job at it.
It was like my favorite one.
Probably one of the favorite episodes
It
that
was
Sydney and I
55
done.
minutes.
Fantastic episode. And we went back to
Yeah.
play it today.
Mm-hmm.
And well, actually, we started recording another episode.
We had yes, we had 2.5.
And I said, "Hey Sid, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, I have to stop recording. I have to go."
Yeah.
So I went upstairs to pee, came back down, and
Mhm.
Sydney, I guess, you started to like, you were like, I
I
wonder
just
if it was any
stopped it.
good.
Yeah.
How do we figure out the audio?
Oh, I clicked on it.
Oh yeah,
I just clicked on it. I stopped it and like clicked on it and there was no audio.
the audio was off.
And I was like, oh gosh, this scares me.
So we had like an hour and a half
And I still don't know what's wrong.
of worth of audio
Right.
podcast out there limboing that didn't get recorded. So this is
Yeah.
2.0 of this episode, but that's okay. That just means that we're going to be better the second time, even though it was one of our favorite episodes too.
It was.
But for those of you who are new here, this is the Work Wherever podcast. We talk about AI, automation, the ability to work wherever so you can live every day like it is Saturday. I am Roy Edwards. I'm a Microsoft SME solutions architect. So Sydney and I both work for...
I'm a scrum master.
And Sydney is a Scrum Master. Certified.
A quality business analyst.
Yep, and we both work for Capital Presence. And
Right.
Capital Presence is a Microsoft CSP, MSP. We do a lot of federal government work, enterprise organizations. We do build Microsoft Power Apps, Power Platform, pretty much anything that exists within the Microsoft 365 cloud. We do it, and we're full remote. So the topic of discussion today has to do with something that we hold very near and dear to our core values because we've done a ton of Microsoft Teams implementations over the last, how long ago was this remote craze?
Like 3 years ago.
lockdown? 3 years?
Basically.
So over the last 3 years, we've done a ton of Microsoft Teams implementations. We did a ton before.
Well, you went fully remote a little bit before COVID
Yeah.
as well, too, right?
We were full remote before the whole COVID thing. And some of our clients that we still have, we had implemented Teams and everything that we're doing, everything
Right.
we've been doing prior to, and that's why they love us even more now because we saw it coming. And so this topic today, which is all around remote work etiquette, most specifically to the camera, what is best practices? What is considered rude? And in your Microsoft Teams meetings, what are some things you should and shouldn't do to not make some people mad and it might even not mean anything that you realize that you're doing, but it's just the perception of it. And so you have the article pulled up, I believe, right?
Yep. So is it rude to keep your camera off in remote work meetings?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's the general consensus. This is from Newsweek.
1,000% rude to keep your camera off. Now, this article I think they make a couple caveats here and there.
Right.
Now, the first time we recorded this episode, I actually started just going hard on it before we even fully read the article.
And we had previously recorded another podcast kind of talking about like personalities, remote personalities and like age groups, which unfortunately probably won't get to hear because I don't know if we're redoing that one.
Well, no, that one...
We can bring it in.
That one's live.
No, it's not. Your bell curve is.
Oh, that's right.
The other one is. And so we kind of went more into depth into talking about like different personalities and who was best at remote work.
Yeah.
Essentially saying like,
It depends.
right, you have to have your own structure. You have to be like self-driven
Yes.
to be good at remote work. And then generally like the younger generation is better.
Well, the younger generation grew up around the internet.
Right, exactly.
I remember a time pre-internet. You probably don't.
I don't remember it. I think I was alive, but
You were definitely alive. You were definitely alive for not everybody in the house has internet.
Right, exactly.
But I remember a time, I remember getting the internet. And I remember
It was like on a CD.
Yeah, AOL was a disc that you handed out at school.
I had that.
Yeah, and you had to plug it into your phone line, and then if you picked up the phone when you're
noise. Right.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, AOL. You had to
alive during like floppy disks.
like buy the internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're basically the same age. We're basically the same person, Sydney. We go over this. I feel like every episode, we're basically the same age. So
basically. We're both millennials.
We're both millennials.
Anyways.
But the younger generations, the Z, and I don't even know what they're called after that. Gen
X.
No, Gen X is older than us.
Oh. I don't know that.
Gen X is older than us. That's my older brother is Gen X. There's boomers before that. And then we were originally the Y generation, but now we're millennials. And then it's Z is the one younger than us. And then there is iGen, I think is what they're going to call the one after. And
like
so
an iPad. Like
yeah,
all
exactly.
those iPad babies are all iGen. Ew, that's weird.
Because they were born they don't remember a time pre-smartphone.
Yeah.
Where you don't remember a time pre-internet. Well, I do, but Z doesn't.
Have you ever seen, like, if you ask like a little kid to take a picture, like pretend you're taking a picture, they'll go like this. Yeah, exactly. Like they'll hold up their or they'll go like this, or hold up like an iPhone, or pretend like you're taking a call, and they'll go like this.
Because
and like our generation would be like hello,
right?
And they'd be like hello.
Wow,
that's weird.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a big amount of you see those certain things where they're like, what is I'm trying to think of a word or like a term, a collect call. Right.
What's a rotary phone?
What's a rotary phone? What's a collect call?
To be honest, I don't really even know what a collect call is.
You didn't do collect calls? I feel like mid 90s was my prime collect call era. And so what a collect call was, you'd go to so do you remember payphones?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you go to a payphone and you could pay so I remember when
you'd pay to.
I remember when it was 25 cents. And it later became 50 cents. I think even before 25, I think for a brief period of time it was like 15 cents. But you put the quarter in and you call whoever you want and you use the phone. That's how a payphone works, for those of you who don't understand.
Makes sense.
Me, as a young child, at the pool is where I always used my collect calls. 1-800-COLLECT. You dial 1-800-COLLECT.
Never did that.
And then it says, who would you like to call? And then you put in my mom's phone number. And then it would say, who is calling? And I would say, Mom, I'm at the pool. Come pick me up.
Right. Like prisons do that.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. And then my mom would get the call. It would ring, ring, ring. And she'd go, hello. And it would go, funny. You have a collect call from Mom at the pool. Come pick me up. Would you like to accept charges?
Right.
No, of course not. Okay. Hang up. Go get it's like the paging. You know? That's what a collect call was.
Right.
We don't have any type of thing like that anymore. That was another thing was like, when I was in high school, you didn't call people after 7. Or until after 7.
The data.
Right. Because it was free nights and weekends.
Right. I did have that a little bit. Or like you only got 400 text messages. That was so hard.
Right. So,
for the month.
Oh, God.
And that's when like text messaging was coming out and like, a prime like middle school. I'd get yelled at so often.
But that's all communication etiquette.
Right.
It's like, hey, don't call me until after 7. That was a rule of ours. Like, we just grew up and understood that.
Right.
Don't text me because it cost me 10 cents a text message. I know that's hard to believe for some of you younger people out there, but it costs 10 cents to send a freaking text message.
I ran that up.
My dad would get so mad at me.
Us too.
Oh my gosh. And you couldn't use the internet.
But now we're like grandfathered in because we're like, we have unlimited data. I don't think they do that.
They don't.
I know.
That's why I left AT&T.
Oh.
I was
Verizon. I don't know if they do it either, but I'm grandfathered in.
I was grandfathered into AT&T. When my wife and I got married, they were like, hey, we advise that you move to the 10 gigs. You guys will share 10 gigs. It'll be great. And what do I have now? Well, you have unlimited. Okay. But you'll pay less for over in this 10 gig. Okay, I'll do that. And then hit with tons of overages. My bill like quadrupled. I was like, well, you guys told me to do this. I didn't know what 10 gig was back in, and yeah, that's why I left AT&T. Screw you, AT&T. I'm Team Magenta now. Give me that T-Mobile. It's fantastic.
Oh, God.
It's great. Anyways, but that was the etiquette was you didn't call somebody after 7. You didn't text message them. there were certain things that you knew, unless I knew that you had a text message plan. Like there were certain people I knew that I was allowed to text message, but text messaging was very different. We had instant messenger back then. So if you wanted to talk to somebody instead of text messaging,
you hear a little door open.
You had your AIM.
And their door shut.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Music to my ears.
Yeah. So that was the etiquette. That's how you communicated with people. These younger generations are growing up with Microsoft Teams. They're growing up with Zoom. They're growing up with FaceTime. They're growing up with all this camera. Snap. You snap somebody a message or something like that. But it's all video. Our generation didn't really have that.
Right.
We didn't have video. A lot of millennials, Gen X, boomers especially, don't like to be on camera. The boomer generation is like, oh, I don't want to be, I don't look right, because they were very like, the boomer generation, like, they were seen when they wanted to be seen. So they got ready, they got all fancy.
Today's generation doesn't care at all.
We'll walk around in sweatpants and some busted up shoes, and they don't care.
Anything on video.
Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
It's very different. Very different mindset. So as we were going through this article around etiquette, around video calls,
right,
I was like, yeah, it's rude not to have your video because the way you communicate. Before we even went into the article, I went off on it because it makes no sense to be on a call, which is a video-enabled call, and to be talking at a blank screen.
Right.
It's very frustrating. And I believe when we had recorded this, I had just done a training for the Navy for like 30 people.
Yeah.
And nobody had their camera on.
Right. Well, the first time we recorded it, like, we would bring up points and like it just kept going and like we were hitting all the points of the article. It was really funny.
I've obviously read the article now.
Right. So this starts out by saying a Newsweek poll found that older workers in America are less bothered by the camera being off than a generation of younger employees, which makes sense. Like, older generation, it's okay for their camera to be off.
Right. It doesn't matter because they don't want to be, they don't want it on anyways. Because they see it as, doesn't it go on to say it's an invasion of privacy? That's what we had even touched on prior to. It was just like you're inviting somebody into, or there's a quote in there or something like that from some older guy, and he's like, separation of business and life or something. What's the quote?
It's at the end.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
We'll get to it.
But this found a poll from 1,500 eligible workers in the U.S. found that those born roughly between 1981 and 1996, which we both fit in there, formed the highest portion of those who believe it is rude to leave your camera off during a remote work meeting.
Which, by the way,
so, millennials, that makes sense.
The millennials hold more employees per percentage than any other generation. Mm-hmm. There's more millennials in the workforce than any other generation. And I believe there's more millennial managers than anybody else, any other generation. I don't know that one is true, but I do know, or I don't have the statistic on that one, I should say, but I do have the statistic on the millennial makes up the largest workforce.
Right.
Percentage of the workforce.
I think I mentioned too, like I could foresee like Gen Z being like, oh, well, it's okay. Like they can have their camera off. Like it's their personal choice.
Right.
Like
That's their personal option.
They're not feeling okay today. They can have it off. It's fine.
I could see
that happening.
I could totally see that happening too, but Gen Z turned her damn camera on.
Exactly.
That's the point here. Because 80 to 90% of communication is nonverbal. Mm-hmm. If you have your camera off, you are missing out on the intended reply. How many times, Sid, have I texted you or somebody texted you something and you misinterpret that text? You're like, oh shit, they're pissed at me. Yeah,
a lot. Or it's just like you don't understand. Like you can't get everything across like from
it's not possible.
A message. There's so many times when, like Destiny will ask me something and I just call her.
Right. You're like, what do you mean?
Can you just show me what you're talking about? Yeah. It just makes so much more sense.
Like K.
Okay.
That response, you're like K. You're like, what does that mean? I mean K.
I definitely use that.
What's K? K like. Okay. K like. Okay.
Okay.
Like what's the K? How are your eyes positioned?
I don't ever use K unless I am like pretty angry.
Really? Noted.
If I'm fine, I'll usually add like a couple extra Y's if it's fine. I'm not gonna do that like in a professional setting. Not in a professional setting.
Add an
I'm
emoji.
like, okay.
That's another point though.
To
I don't care about emojis.
To you, exactly. I mean, that's the kind of.
I will see. I've seen more
I'm
emojis.
not going to do that to my client, like our professional clients.
But I've seen more emojis over the last 4 years than I have 3 years than I have ever in business.
Well, they have emojis for. I mean, they have emoji reactions on, like Outlook now, so I don't have to respond
everywhere.
back. I can just send you a smiley face.
It's crazy, and that
which is great. I thumbs up your stuff all the time because sometimes you just send me a lot of messages, and like it'll be like nighttime and I don't feel like answering.
Yep.
But not everything needs an answer, so if like I acknowledge it, hey.
When I first entered the workforce, I worked for boomers, and it was very obviously most people did. Baby boomers, there's a whole lot of them, and they were all in charge. And so the baby boomers, you had to respond to everything. It was like, did you get my email? Why didn't you say received?
That's the worst.
And the emails had to say like, John, Howard. It was like writing a very formal, very suit and tie. Mm-hmm. Everything was very. And then I remember when it was originally called Links, which was a. I
don't know what that is.
It's a chat. Mm. And then there was Skype. Oh. And then WebEx, and then now it's Teams, and now we're using Teams call more than anything else. But we had Cisco and WebEx and all of these dialers before, but they were just phones in the middle of the room. And so you'd go into your call because remote work existed prior to COVID. My dad was a remote worker. I think you said your aunt was a remote worker.
Yeah.
So they dealt with this, but my dad never had to turn his video on. He used his phone. When you dialed into a meeting and you're at home, you had a...
Well, that's right. We talked about car phones
and
everything.
That's right. My dad had a car phone. He had a Mercedes-Benz 560 SL, I think is what it was. One of the little convertibles, 80s car. And it had a car phone in it. And he would come home from work and he would park in the driveway. And like we couldn't go knock on his door. Like I remember like, Dad's home. And my mom would be like, no. Like you can't go out there, like... Get out, get back inside. Right. And he would sit in his car for like hours, because he was on a work call. Because now we have cell phones and we have all this stuff where you can take a call from wherever to play into the name of the podcast. But it wasn't always like that. And so you had these meetings, the baby boomers grew up with, well, I'm just on a call. Mm-hmm. I'm going to walk around. Bluetooth headsets wasn't even really a thing. Like you sat in your chair on your landline corded phone and you were on it. And then if you were in a call later on, you had speakerphones in the conference rooms and you spoke at the box. And that's how sales calls got done. You're speaking at the box and you're like, so what do you think? And you see all these 90s movies, right? Where the sales team is all like around the conference room, like head down on the, I think Wolf of Wall Street's like that, where they're like looking at the speaker box and they're like, they're like, crossing their fingers and the person's like, yeah, let's do it, and they're like holding their breath and like fist pumping and dancing and stuff. That's how it was. You don't have that anymore because I can see you, which for business reasons is good, I think. But I can totally see why the older generations, the boomers, even the Gen X, they're a lot more like the boomers than they are the millennials. Like we were super young when we got the internet. 10 and under, right? I know that you're like, what are you talking about, Roy? But like the older millennials were like 10 years old, maybe a little older, 12, when they got internet. Gen X, they're like college, so they went through most of their lives without the internet, and they were way into adulthood when like social media came out. Right. So they align more so with the baby boomers on this because they're like, what the heck do I need to turn a camera on? Now, are we making stupid generalizations here? Of course. There's going to be baby boomers out there that love to turn their cameras on. There's going to be Gen X out there that love to turn their cameras on. But by and large, the millennials think it's super rude if you don't.
Right. I mean, it says they're digital native, or it says why do they care? They're digital natives. Keeping a camera on.
Millennials, this is.
Yep, it's a generation that's constantly connected. A video call is one way to build stronger, more personal connections with others. And they're very team-oriented. So they see a team meeting as part of communicating with video more effective.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're the remote generation.
The generation is known for caring about inclusivity, intentionality, authenticity, and transparency.
Yeah.
And they see cameras off as disrespectful. If your camera is off, you're not being intentional with your time.
Yeah.
And you can't tell body language, transparency.
Or what if you're paying attention?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you care? So there's a couple times that I don't remember if this article even makes mention of it or not, but my camera sits in the middle of my monitors.
Right.
Because I have a docking station and a camera, and then I have 2 monitors. So I'm never looking directly at the camera. Even right now, if you're watching on YouTube, my camera is here. And
I know, me neither. I have
I'm
to
not
make
looking,
a conscious effort. They
right.
really get to know the side of my face.
I'm not looking at you, camera.
Hey, guys.
Right? That'd be weird. Sydney's in the room. I'm making eye contact with Sydney. Okay?
Right.
Now, when we're talking about video on a camera,
Right.
For a Microsoft Teams call, the camera sits in the middle of my monitors, and I'm slightly looking to the right. And if it's a new client or it's a new meeting or something like that, I'm like, hey, my camera sits over here, but I'm paying attention to you. Okay, I'm looking at you because I want to interpret your body language. I want to make sure that we're having a real conversation here. That's how I do it, right? So, also, we also have a policy where I give you those blue notebooks.
Right.
Whenever we get a new employee, we get blue notebooks. I need to start sending them pens because I did note that, and I realized that not everybody has pens
We
these
need a real
days.
clown pet. Like, I have like one pen that works.
That's it. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
order some pens.
Okay, with little clouds on them.
We can add some clouds. We'll
Okay.
throw a cloud out on it.
There.
And because if you're typing, so if I'm not looking at my camera because it's not on top of my monitor, maybe yours is, but if I am slightly angled to the right, looking at a separate monitor, and I am typing on my computer, the interpretation of me is that I'm working, that I'm not paying attention to the meeting, and I'm working, okay? Because I can see you. If your camera's off, my interpretation of you is that you don't care about this call.
Right. Unless you specifically state otherwise. So, and the next section is it rude and unprofessional to keep your camera off? And then they go on to say, think about the context of what you would do in person, right? You wouldn't
Right.
not look at somebody. You wouldn't pull a hoodie over your head or block your face.
Right.
Like, you're in person with them.
I
so
have a hoodie.
what
So,
makes
like-
it any right.
Like, what if I sat there like this, Sydney, and I was just like,
You look like a thumb.
hey, no, this is great. Good conversation. Like, do you feel like I'm engaged with you right now?
No.
Not at all. That's another thing. So, like, you just paused so the fact that you just paused and I can't see you and you can't see me, the fact that you paused, are you paying attention? Could that be my interpretation?
Could be.
Right. It makes it harder to have a conversation right now. Like now I'm gonna.
right.
Oh, hey, how's it going? It makes it easier to have a conversation. I can
Right.
play off your body language. I
Sure.
can see if you're thinking. If I can't see you and you're pausing like that, I'm like, okay, is her internet lagging? Is she thinking? Did she leave? Is she not paying attention?
Right.
There's so many other variables that play into that.
Right. And it says, I mean, if you do have your camera off, like, think about what, like, the feeling it's creating, right?
Right.
It creates kind of an imbalance. You're like, okay, well, why is this person off their camera? Like,
Right.
do they,
It's
know?
really difficult.
And it's uncomfortable, like, for other people. So, I mean, it sets the tone, too, right? So, if you come in and your camera's off, then I'm more likely to turn my camera off.
right.
And this gets into, like, that class you mentioned, or, like, college or something.
Yep.
I would feel so bad, like, when you
The
just
professor.
see the professor.
It's
Like,
super hard
mm-hmm.
as somebody training.
Especially like or online classes or like mid-COVID, you'd
Oh
always
my
see like
gosh.
there's like one person like with their camera on, and then
Right.
the poor college professor who's just like
Right.
teaching to little black boxes.
We have a mandatory policy, cameras on.
Yep.
I think our clients appreciate it. I think that it shows a sense of professionalism. We also wear, well, I'm not wearing the logo right now. You are. But we have a dress code, which you are abiding by the dress code. It sounds like some strict dress code. It's,
Right. I mean, it's hot today. It's like 90 degrees, so I got shorts on. But
is
like
it really
I have,
90?
yeah. Well, I know you're dressed like for winter.
I'm in jeans and a hoodie.
like
So-
sweating outside. But yes, obviously dress for who you're meeting with too is important. I do have like polo shirts.
Right. We have
whatnot.
polos. We have like a athletic business casual.
Yeah.
It's like Nike polos, Under Armour polos, First Form polos.
But if I'm not meeting with anybody, I'm gonna be in a hoodie.
I'm on hoodies. I
With
wear
our
a hoodie
logo.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
The meeting we had with our new client today, I'm in a hoodie. This was exactly what I wore.
Or I like change, like honestly, sometimes.
But the camera's on. But like, the fact that I have my camera on and then I'm engaging with you, that shows my sense of professionalism and that I care. More
Yeah, of
so
course.
than I'm working from home and I'm wearing a hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the older generations, boomers and X, might not see, okay, their camera's not on, that's not that unprofessional. But if I showed up to a lunch meeting in a hoodie, they might see that as unprofessional.
Right.
So know your audience,
Yeah,
Here.
of course.
right?
And that gets into, again, that class, like that you taught with 200-something people, right?
Yeah.
And nobody had their camera
Not
on.
a single person.
I think there's times, like,
There are
when
times, yeah.
when, okay, that's not necessary. If it's a big, like, webinar, like,
Mhm.
1,000 people don't have to have their camera on.
Unless you're leading it.
Yeah, unless you're
I
leading
had
it,
my
of
camera on
course.
because I'm leading it.
Right.
I want them to see me, see my interactions. Now, if I'm leading a call,
Have you seen that movie, The Whale?
no. What's
It's
that?
really sad. It's about like a morbidly obese dad, but he's a college professor and he always like keeps his camera off while he's teaching classes.
Because he's afraid of what he looks like?
Mhm.
That's sad.
It's really sad.
But you shouldn't care.
Yeah.
Because most people don't care.
Yeah.
Now, are there going to be people who are the like jackasses that are going to like be looking at what your house is? Oh, what do you, you know, because that's another thing people think. They're like, well, what if they're judging my background? Okay, blur your background.
I mean, unless you're like a hoarder, yeah. I might judge you, but
Blur your background. Set
put
set
a
a
background on.
set a one of those
Are
fake
you a
backgrounds.
big background person? You're not.
I have
You
No.
don't like background.
I don't like backgrounds. I think that if you turn a background on, other than the blur one, okay, blur I'm okay with, because I can still kind of see
Like
where
our
you're
whole
at,
team uses backgrounds, I think.
and I hate it. To be honest, I hate it because like I think you're hiding something.
Right. Well, I mean, we know that they're not, right? One employee works, like, his roommate works at home, too. So he's,
Yeah.
like, sharing a space with her.
Right, and that's a courtesy thing.
Our
and
other
that's been
employee gets
known.
up at, like, early. So it's, like, dark outside still.
She's in Vegas.
Yeah.
And we're in Washington D.C.
Right, right.
and
So
it's
she
like
has one on.
6 a.m. stand-ups for her.
Mm-hmm. Or there's, like, there's kids running in the background or something like that.
Oh yeah, look, I get it.
Sometimes I'll turn mine off. Like, my dog likes to jump on the table and,
He
like,
does.
stick his head in the camera. Like, I'll turn it off
But-
sometimes, but
We are so far into our working relationship now, it's different.
it's different.
If it's a new client, like that has become a big thing where you'll get on a call and you have these like corporate backgrounds that have like the name of their company on there.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when people do that
We have this.
because I'm like, what are you doing? Like what are you hiding? That's what I think.
Yeah.
Like, what are you hiding? And if they're my employees, like I've looked into where employees are working from. Like if you get on and you generally don't have a background and then you show up to a meeting and you have a background, to me, your environment has changed. Like, where are you? Are you Starbucks? Are you at
I
home?
took a meeting from a boat one time. They're like, your background's on. I'm like, no, I'm on a
Nah,
boat.
I'm fishing. And your
I'm
fiance
fishing.
caught a pelican. We saw
Right.
it in live.
Yeah, it was sad.
That was cool. Well, yeah,
That's
well,
sweet.
it was sad, but it was a cool scene.
Yeah.
It was a cool scenery. I think that you should not have a background unless you got some like crazy, kids running around in diapers or like something like distraction.
But that's life. Right. That's life. If we're on like a general call, okay.
I
Your
think
kid will
backgrounds are
Pop in.
a conversation starter. I
Sure.
bought a
I mean,
painting.
I like changing it sometimes for like a holiday.
I'm okay with that. But I like The Office. I like your office background. It should speak about who you are.
Like kitchen.
Put some props in there. I'm dead serious. Like I have my guitar to my right. I have our awards behind
You
me.
just see the big picture.
I have my
your
big
awards.
picture back there of the burning boats.
Yeah.
This brought up that I think last time we recorded, we talked about that woman who did a CNN interview or something like that.
Who was like intentionally placing stuff.
Yeah, she had
behind
Easter eggs. She had a dildo on her bookshelf. She had like a severed hand and like blood splatters and like a ransom note or something like that. She was like planning little Easter eggs, you know. It's a conversation starter.
Right.
Like, now the internet had a field day with her. Come to find out that it was all planted, but like, that's what you should be doing. Like, if you have the space, not everybody has a dedicated work environment. I understand that. So if you're working from like a desk in like the living room and your kids are watching TV behind you, throw a background on, okay? But if you're working in an office, like a home office or a dedicated workspace, jazz it up a little bit, you know? Like, who are you? Like, I learn more about you by that, right? Because it used to be, the topic of discussion used to be like shoes or like socks or ties or your suit or whatever. Like, people aren't, like, you don't sit down on a call anymore and be like, oh, nice watch.
Right.
You know, it's different. So now the topic of discussion is your background. So I'm not a big background fan.
I'm indifferent to the backgrounds, but
I get
the
it.
videos I get for sure. And I do think there are times when it's okay. Like I mentioned the other day, like I was driving and it was an internal meeting, and no, it wasn't with a client or anything. Like, we were just kind of talking something over, and I was going to the office. So
instead of looking up your nose.
Right. I had my camera off because I didn't want to, I don't want to drive like this.
Right. That's a problem.
I also don't want like a straight up like shot of my chin while I'm driving.
Yeah. I keep my camera off when I drive too.
But in that case, just announce
Explain it.
Say, hey, I'm in my car, I'm driving.
Right.
Or like, you work from the pools.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm
in my kids' swim practice.
Exactly.
That's what I say.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's all you need to do.
And people will, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know.
Right. Or keeping it, like, I'll definitely keep it on mute too, especially if there's a lot of people in the meeting.
Right. Which they'll like that. Because if you're at somewhere that's distracting,
your kids
visually and audibly distracting.
Your dogs are barking, in my case. Yeah.
Right. They'll just be like, because then they'll be like, Sydney, can you mute, please? Gosh.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Plus, you drive a Wrangler. That's a
top-down
Wrangler.
Windy.
You're like
top
driving,
was not down, but
listening
it was loud.
to your reggae music on blast. We're like, shit, Sydney, God, go on mute, please.
I do not do that.
She did.
I do, but not on camera.
But I think camera has to be on. It's a non-starter for me. And to set the tone for those of you who are wanting to implement a camera etiquette, it starts with the manager. Because if people get on a call and they see the manager camera off,
they're going to be off.
Cameras go off.
It might start on, but it's going to go off.
It might start on, but that'll be gone quick.
Right.
So.
And then if you do switch your camera on, like, I would be more likely to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. If mine goes on, my employees go on real quick. You know, which I always enter a call with my cameras on, unless I'm driving.
Yeah, of course. And they do talk a little bit about, like, again, when it would be appropriate for it to be off if you're not feeling well. I was sick one day, and we had our meetup here, and I missed it. But I was like, hey, I'm literally, like, throwing up in bed. I'm here.
But you entered with your camera on.
Lucky you.
You did.
I'm like, but my pajamas are on.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, guys.
You did enter with your camera on. You said, hey, guys, I'm not feeling well, which we all knew you weren't feeling well because we were with you the night before.
Yeah.
And not that really matters. But you were like, hey, I'm not feeling well. Camera's on, but I'm here. I'm just going to turn it off.
Here,
you guys
I'm
don't
listening.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, that happens.
Yeah.
But announce it.
It's a perk of working from home.
That's right.
But yeah, announce it, obviously.
I will say, when you are doing a training, because that's come up a few times, if you're doing a training and the people don't have their cameras on, one, it's super hard to train like that, but you do have to. I now am more experienced in the way that I train to people who are not in person, and I ask for reaction. She'll be like, by show of hands, because you can raise hand in Microsoft Teams. I think you can do it in Zoom too. By show of hands, how many new blah, 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 blah. You know, give me a thumbs up if you guys are, you know, whatever.
Applaud.
Use your, you know, right. Like, you can use it for, like, votes, you know. Thumbs up if this. Send the laugh emoji if this, you know. So, like, get them to interact in other ways so that you don't feel like you're talking to a black screen.
Yep. And then, I mean, the last little section here, is it wrong for colleagues to judge me for keeping your camera off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to.
Yeah. Again, unless you make it known.
Yeah. They're gonna. And I am one of them.
Don't take a remote job. I mean.
That's true. I'll fire some people for not turning their camera on.
Yeah.
If you work for me.
Part of the job.
Which, if you work for me, you're full remote. Except Sydney, who gets to hang out with me once a week. Lucky you.
Lucky you.
If you are full remote, it's part of the job. And if you don't turn your camera on and you work for me, it's one of our core values. It's a reason for fire. Laid out in the beginning. Turn it on.
Well, you have like those companies like Twitter, right?
Yeah.
They have, she just fired 80% of their workers.
80%.
Because they were all remote.
Probably not cameras on, wiggling mouses in bed.
Right.
Yep.
He's like, we don't need all these people to function.
That's right.
Turn your camera on.
Yep. Well, this has been a great episode.
Yeah.
I love this. Hopefully it was better than the one we...
so much, we did it twice.
That's right. How about that? Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. Sydney, got anything else before we head out?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. Until next time. Well, actually, guys, like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yes.
Hit us in the comments if you guys want to hear anything. We got tons of topics. We talk about Microsoft 365, Power Platform, all the good stuff. Remote work from wherever.
If you want more communication etiquette,
yeah,
you can join Online Academy, Online 365 Academy.
Great
it's
suggestion.
Not there yet,
Business Communication Masterclass.
Yep. Great
idea
Thank
there. You. That's right. Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. Until next time. See you.
Yeah.
Hey there! Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for all the latest videos from Capital Presence.